Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the very first edition of Forget Me Not Village Streamcast. My name is Brian Prowitz, and we are joined by Pam Speta, who is the featured person in these conversations. Pam Speta is an independent certified dementia trainer in PAC, or Positive Approach to Care, with Teepa Snow. She's also a CNA, and Pam's list of titles also includes Family Caregiver Advocate, Instructor, Speaker, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the hostess, I should say, of this brand new podcast. Hi, Pam.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Well, great. I'm excited to have this opportunity to spread the word of Forget Me Not Village, the concept behind the name, how we got here, a little bit about you, and a whole lot more as we go forward with this Streamcast. Every the first and third Thursdays of each month at 2 o'clock Pacific time. But we know people around the world are interested in the work that you're doing. And so I'm very excited to be able to spread the news and share more information about what's happening with Forget Me Not Village, as I know you are as well. So, well, let's get started. The first thing is, would you please describe for people what's happening with Forget Me Not Village? The idea that you continue to share as you speak around the country, even with COVID, and help around, in fact, around the world of late. You've gotten some other emails lately, right?
For sure. Yes, we have. Forget Me Not Village is a complex of what will be 4 buildings. It centers around family-orientated care. So what that means is that a spouse that's caring for someone 24/7 will be able to enter the spousal facility and live with the person who has brain injury, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever, and have the support with the other 4 families in the same building. What it's going to do, it's going to give you emotional, physical, financial, and psychological support through the whole process of this disease. There will be also an adult daycare that will be open to anyone to come, and it will be like entering into 1950 Roseburg, where it'll be interactive. We'll have a barber and a beauty shop. We're going to have a barn with, cows and chickens and pigs, and a church and a man cave and a kitchen where mom can pretend like she's taking care of a baby. There'll be exercise, there'll be music, it'll be a 50s and 60s diner that you can go have an ice cream and dance to some 50s and 60s music. So it's an interactive village, which is something that's never really been built before. They have similar things, but not like what we're doing here in Roseburg.
Well, I think it's really important for us to get to the story of how you came to this concept. That story involves great personal sacrifice yourself. You've been through what it's like to be a caregiver as you watch your loved one, your husband, Rich, be diagnosed and die from dementia. I mean, your story is deep. It resonates with many people. And I wanted to make sure we told that story today here in the first episode of the Forget Me Not Village Streamcast. So talk to me kind of like, what was life like when the diagnosis came that Rich had dementia? Well, and when was that?
Yeah, well, it would have been before he died, approximately 11 years. And it came in the form of what they called MCI, which is mild cognitive impairment. And I, like all the other millions of people out there, had no idea what I was in for, what it even meant, because the progress of the disease is so slow. It happens in such a long period of time, years, that, it's very hard to get your arms around exactly what your life is going to look like. So I was working full time in a job that I had worked in for over 20 years that, it was a financial advisor. In those kind of jobs, you just don't kind of walk away from and come back again once you need to. So I made the decision to continue to work and care for him at home. And it turned out to be one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. He had Lewy body dementia, which is a very violent form of dementia. It was complicated with the use of chemical restraints in a care home that I put him into. So there were an awful lot of complications and a lot of problems. But I was going through this and kept thinking, if I only had help, I could do this. But unfortunately, for years, there was no one that came to help except for caregivers that I paid. I tried to stuff a full-time job into basically 6 hours a day, which was very, very difficult to do. So when he passed away 2.5 years ago, and actually before that, I determined that no one else needs to go through what I went through. Dementia is hitting younger and younger families, and they're going to be faced the exact same problems I had. And I wanted to solve it because it hasn't been solved anywhere, even globally at this point. So Roseburg is going to be the first village ever built like this. But needless to say, there are people all over the world that realize that what we're missing in our care system right now is exactly what this home is going to be. So it was purely selfish why it started. But now that he's gone, I'm doing it in his honor.
And you're getting a lot of attention around the country, around the world for this, and having the opportunity to speak. We'll talk about your relationship with Teepa Snow in just a couple of moments, but I want to continue. So Rich is diagnosed. What you know and what you shared with me is how much there are just thousands of people out there who have lived through exactly or are currently living through what you've gone through.
Yes.
And of course, you also will say that there are many, many millions more that are about to and just don't know it quite yet.
That's true.
But what did you learn? What were some of the elements and the stories that you have about what you went through with Rich that has formed your experience, your opinions, your professional opinions through training and other things that will make a difference for anybody who comes to Forget Me Not Village?
Well, I think the secret of the whole thing is education. There's so much bad information out there that it's scary. And people believe that the person with dementia forgets you. And that's really not true because the speech memory stays there until they pass. So what happens when someone time travels? Like he frequently would be a child or a young adult. And I didn't know him at that time, even though we were married 45 years by the time he passed away. So what would happen is I would then take the role of mom or take the role of his boss or something of that nature that was the person in his life at that time that he had his attachment to. So because he didn't remember me as my wife, I didn't care. He was remembering my voice and that I was the person that was there for him. I didn't realize how much this whole process can be loss of dignity for him. He was a fireman. He was the bravest man I had ever met in my life. He has saved more lives because he was always the first one in the fire. He'd bring people out, babies out, the whole 9 yards. And to watch him go through what he went through in care homes was devastating for me. And there was a period of time, about a year before he really got ill, that he told me he never wanted me to care for him like that. And that, he still had his pride and his dignity. So I learned through my experience with him to respect that. And through the training, what started out as being incredibly stressful. I mean, repeating things over and over and over again, and the sundowners and the hallucinations, because I didn't understand what was going on, it was incredibly stressful. Didn't sleep at night for years, and that can be devastating in itself. Had no activities outside the home. You were locked in the house, and then you stayed locked in until you got out to go to work the next day. He missed being outside. He was a physical guy. He was only 61 when he was diagnosed and passed away at 72, and couldn't go outside, couldn't do things outside because he was a flight risk. So as I walked through this process, I started thinking about all the things that I needed in order to be able to care for him. And one of them was exercise. The other was giving him self-esteem and purpose. And feeling like he's still okay because his brain still, battled with that. What's going on? I don't understand. So the care home was a result of that. It was a result of keeping his dignity. It's a result of me staying his wife and not having to be his 24/7 caregiver. There were a lot of things that came out of this that I learned after I was educated, after Teepa explained the processes and things you had to go through and what he was going through. It actually turned the entire process into a very pleasant one in the sense that it wasn't stressful anymore because I knew what to expect. I knew what to look for. And we could actually have some fun with that. And the kids and I actually went on vacation within a year before he died because the kid says, we missed a lot of our dad. We want to see if we can gain some more memories back. So we did. And we had a great time. It was so much fun, even though he was still showing, trying to fight the mirror and that kind of thing. It was funny. We could actually have a good time with him. So what I'm trying to do is change these experiences from being the most stressful thing you'll ever do for yourself and your family into something that's a passage that gives you the right to cry, gives you a right to help, gives you a right to laugh, and gives you a right to walk with them all the way up until they passed away. And he did pass away at home with all the kids around him.
Can you talk about the incredible empowerment, the calmness, the everything that came when you were educated? How much education about this? Because while there's a lot that's not known, there's a lot that is known. When you began to really learn, how did it change your life? I guess you just described it in the trip that you took.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and how important that is for everybody else currently and downstream who are going to see that, just how you want to play a role in that education process for people.
Right. What happened was you can't bring them into your reality. In other words, because they don't know where the bathroom is, because they don't know who you are, you can't bring them into where your reality lies. You have to go into theirs. So what happened is that allowed me to think outside the box. Okay, so what's the problem here? Why can't I sleep at night? What can I do? So I then started to actually do things to the house, do things to keep the temperature at a steady temperature, change the way he dressed, not force him to have a top sheet on his bed because I thought that's what he needed, or put pajamas on because I thought that's what he needed. It changed my whole outlook on how to take care of him. And as a result of that, I was able to get some sleep. There wasn't that much stress because I was able to go into his world and live in his reality very easily. And that's the part that's difficult for people. They keep trying to, say, no, this isn't right. Your mother's gone, which is what I did. Your mother's not here. Whatever it is, where's the bathroom? Why don't you know where the bathroom is? Well, it's simple. In their reality, in their mind, they think the bathroom is over there and they're going to kind of like pee on the floor if that's where they think the bathroom is. So if you realize that's what's happening, there are things that you can do to, save your sanity, save your house and everything else that goes along with that. And I do teach that. I teach them the clothes to wear. I teach them that certain types of undergarments are better than others. They absorb more. I teach them different things that might alert them, like a doorbell, or things you can do with a Ring doorbell versus a regular doorbell. Or when it comes to cleaning up after going potty, the first time he tried to wipe himself and couldn't wash his hands, I realized, we got to fix this one. And I bought bidets, which work beautifully. And he was able to be clean. He was able to be dry. He never got breakouts. He never got sores. But it was through this process where I realized that I'm the one that's got to change. It can't be him. And therefore, I need to fix the problem if there is one. And sleeping all night was a huge, huge, huge problem. And there are things that I did to their bedroom to make it easier, which is the use of ambient light, not bright light, which is what I was basically doing because I'd have to get up in the middle of the night and wash the sheets and everything. And I came up with an idea that worked so well that I was actually able to get up for just a few minutes and go right back to bed. So if I'd known that 2.5 years earlier, it would have made my life incredibly easier. But just live and learn. And now I'm trying to let other people know that these are the things that I did, and you can be creative and come up with some of your own.
We'll talk about your certified training process. Now you teach people this. I think you get a tremendous amount of satisfaction out of knowing that you're helping other people with these little tidbits like that. But talk about what what was the process for you to become certified to be able to teach this?
There is a series of, and in my case, it was face-to-face, where they actually teach you how to feed them, how to dress them, how to react to different behaviors, what the brain is actually doing. It's literally dying, and what's happening and why. It is hours and hours of training and continuing education training. And me, I'm just like a sponge. I not only went to Teepa, but I looked up everything I could. I got involved with the Brain Injury Alliance, Parkinson's Association. I still train to this day because things change almost on a daily basis. So I'm just kind of cutting through the red tape for everybody else and giving them the knowledge of everything that I've done and learned, and get them in contact with maybe someone that can help them if I can't. So training caregivers, making sure that they understand that they cannot run up and approach someone with dementia and grab at them, otherwise they're going to get hit. There are things that I learned how to do from Teepa through the hours and hours of training that I got from her, and from just plain needing to do it with Rich.
How did you meet Teepa Snow?
My husband was in a care home down in Medford. And when I put him in there, because he was getting very, very violent, and the doctors needed to know what kind of meds he could take, I was told, he's going to have a new family, so we want you just to go away and not come back for about 6 weeks. Well, that hit me like a ton of bricks. If you've been married that many years, you just don't walk away and let him get a new family. So I said, you know what? He has a family. I don't want him to have a new family.
What was that person telling you?
Telling me to stay away, that he was going to have a new family, and I was not to come back and see him for at least 6 weeks. And then he probably wouldn't remember me.
But his new family was basically the caregivers at this facility. Is that right?
Correct.
I'm sorry. I had to interrupt you to ask that question, because that's something that would be difficult for sure to take.
Yeah, it was. It was really, really rough. And then you had to take everything that reminded him of you there. So when you went home, that wasn't there. Well, I was able to stay away for about 1 week, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I went down to visit him, and he was in bed, drooling, basically comatose. He just didn't know who I was. He'd lost 8 pounds. It was like, really? What's going on? And the caregiver goes, well, he's violent. We had to protect the rest of our residents here. So, we gave him some medicine so that he would rest and wouldn't be violent. And I thought, but he's like drooling. He can't pick his head up. He can't move. What's wrong with him? And they said, well, that's just the normal course of dementia. That's what naturally happens. And I thought, how could this man be working with me in the yard a week before, and you're telling me that's the natural course? I just couldn't believe it. And it was only by coincidence that the next week, Teepa Snow was speaking in Canyonville. And I saw that, and it was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to understand her, because I didn't understand the medical terms and all this other kind of good stuff. But I went to see her anyway. And I told her the story of why they said he was violent, which is simply when he was home, he used to be afraid he was going to have an accident at night. So he would take Kleenex or toilet paper and stuff it down the front of his pants. So if he had a leak, it wouldn't make any difference. And, I didn't care. If that's what he was happy and comfortable with, that was fine with me. But when he got to the care home, he tried to do that, and the caregiver ran at him and grabbed his pants and tried to take the paper out. And he hauled off and clocked her one. He hit her. And then, of course, he's violent. Well, within the first 30 to 45 minutes of Teepa's speech in Canyonville, she said, you never run up to someone with dementia and grab at them, otherwise they'll hit you. Well, I realized right then that it wasn't Rich that was the problem. It was the caregiver that wasn't trained that was the problem. So afterwards, I stopped her And I asked her a question. I says, this is what happened. And she looked at me and she said, that's not right. That's against the law to use chemical restraints. That started the journey. So the next step was to take the med sheet to the pharmacist, which I did. And he looked at the med sheet and he said, your husband is being overdosed. At this rate, he's going to be dead in 2 weeks. So needless to say, that alarmed me a little bit. And I got him out of there and put him in a different care home that swore they were going to help me. That's what started it. So yeah, it's pretty traumatic.
Was this typical treatment for anybody in dementia, memory care, anywhere you would go? And was it born of not having the latest sort of the Teepa Snow version of ways to treat people in your husband's situation? Do you attribute that more? Because it sounds like that might be a common thing that maybe was sort of the understanding of the industry, but possibly that Teepa Snow had advanced things to a point where there were other ways to do this, and it's maybe a next level of understanding is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, she's amazing. Anybody has anything to do with dementia knows of Teepa. And she has spent so many years of her life dedicated to training caregivers to give the correct type of care and the family members the correct type of care. Care homes know of her. They know chemical restraints is against the law. This particular care home used 2 different pharmacies in order to get away with the prescriptions. And then once I was able to get him home and counted the pills, found out that he had actually been given double pills on some days instead of just individual. Can I say that all care homes are like that? Lord, I hope not. I hope not. But if I can educate families to be on the lookout for something like that, that would be a good thing, so they could stop it before it ever starts, because it's not necessary. In Teepa's training, we learn how to behavior management. The psychotropic drugs that are given for that type of control is very much like a morphine or a codeine or LSD or any of these other drugs, where if you've ever dealt with any of them, those people are really not in their body. They're just like another person. Well, that's what the psychotropics do. And that's what I experienced with Rich. When he was under the influence of the medicines, he was highly violent and he would look past me, not to me. And he had no idea who I was, and he could have killed me in an instant. But once I was able to get him off the drugs, which I did do, I got him off all the drugs. It took well over 6 months. And then when something came up and he would grab my arm, I would say, you're hurting me, let go. And he would let go, because he was understanding that he was hurting me. But under the drugs, there was just no way.
Well, we have a few minutes left in today's episode. We're here every first and third Thursday of the month at 2 p.m. Pacific. By the way, we can see the comments that are coming in on Facebook and on YouTube, and we may run through some of those comments if we have time here at the end of the program today. But we have gotten a few comments, Pam. I'm sure you'll be excited to see some of the people that are checking in. So I want to shift a little bit to tell people about the status of Forget Me Not Village, the attention this concept has gotten, because you've traveled around, you're helping other places put this together. But as far as letting people know about the village in Roseburg and its status, maybe a little bit about that and how people can help.
Well, we have a website, the forgetmenotvillage.org website. Obviously, if you're here, we are still getting donations. You can do things like purchase trees or bench or bricks or name a room or volunteer. And you need lots of volunteers. Even now in the beginning stages of the care home. There's a lot of organizations looking at this. We've got Parkinson's Association, Oregon Care Partners, Alzheimer's Foundation actually endorsed us and gave us a grant, which is a big deal. We've had inquiries from as far away as the Amsterdam, where they have the oldest running village in the world that is interested in the concept. Because they don't have anything that takes care of someone 24/7. So because it's never been done before, there are a lot of people that are pessimistic, But I'll tell you, if you've been in those boots, if you've had to care for someone and worked full time, you would know this is a godsend. This is something that you absolutely have to survive. By the time Rich passed away, I was so physically sick because you can't go to the doctor. You just can't. You have nobody there to watch somebody, and God forbid you need a surgery or whatever. It makes it very risky physically, mentally, and not to mention financially. Because we're a nonprofit, we are keeping expenses as low as we can. So at this point, it looks like the expenses will be about $2,500 a month per couple. And additional expenses would be like caregiver expenses or additional food or that type of thing. But basically for the management, the training, the education, the help that you would get would only be about $2,500 a month for a couple.
And that alone is revolutionary.
Yeah.
And how can it be that cheap? And I say that cheap, right? $2,500 a month is a lot of money. $7,500 a month is a lot of money. So how do you get that price point down to that level?
Well, because it's the family that's still taking care of them. You don't have outside caregivers that the building is furnishing. That's the difference. So we don't need to go through all the state guidelines, which they have more rules and regs than Carter's Got Pills. Plus, being a nonprofit, we don't have high-level CEOs that need expensive monies and that type of thing. So that's how we can keep it reasonable. The idea is that people don't have to go on Medicaid, that they can go through the process without being financially devastated. And with people like, I get calls every day, my wife is 55 or 52 or, even younger. These families have to have a solution because they need to work. They can't quit. It would be just like you, Brian. You've worked your tail off to get where you are. What about if your wife gets sick and you have to do something about that? You can't quit your job and come back to where you were when you left. You'd have to start all over. And at, the age that would be, it would be really hard to do. So why not help one another? Why not work together to get through the disease and have a life on the other side and still give your spouse dignity and love and the attention that they need during this disease? For sure.
And while the cost for couples to live at Forget Me Not Village once it's built is fairly low, you have a tremendous job in front of you to get this facility built. But you have land, you have donation. You give us an update on the status of the site and what you hope to accomplish. You're going to need probably $1 million. To put this together. And that's part of what we want to try to get out there into the world, is that this is a great idea, that its time has come in Roseburg and in other places, but to build this, there's going to need to be a tremendous amount of resources raised, but you're off to a really good start, Pam.
Yes, we are. Tom Pappas, Victory Builders, donated the land. It is behind the Shady Oaks Motel on Highway 99. We've already gone through IE engineering, had all the approvals done. Everything is done. They've actually, mapped out the footprint of the buildings and that type of thing. And then COVID hit and winter hit, and we're just waiting for it to dry out a little bit so we can actually start construction on the project. Since Tom Pappas built Downtown Disney, can you imagine what this is going to look like for people that go into that town? It's like Roseburg would be another Disneyland for seniors, It'd be amazing. I can't wait. He's so excited about being able to do it. It's like, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, if you go to forgetmenotvillage.org, you can see all about Teepa's story. There are photos of Pam's story. You can learn about Teepa's story too. You learn all about Pam's story. You can see pictures of Pam and Rich. You can see more about Pam's path that has gotten her to this point, all of us to this point. And also, there's a video there on our YouTube channel and Facebook page. You can find the videos that have been produced to tell the story of Forget Me Not Village. And there's information there as well on donating and volunteering and just learning more about what's happening. And of course, if you want to reach out to Pam, you can do that at pam@forgetmenotvillage.org. And again, we're going to be here the first and third Thursdays of each month at 2 o'clock Pacific with this same format, which will stream live on Facebook and YouTube, because not only do we want to see live comments, which we're going to get to here in just a second, but also because these videos will live on these platforms and are shareable. So if you know somebody that you wish like crazy could have seen this, now you can just share that link with them and they can sit and watch the program and then, find out more about what's happening. So that's the whole idea behind this effort here with the Forget Me Not Streamcast. Let's run through some comments here. No real hard questions for you today, Pam. Though I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure they are. So a few folks, you may or may not know everybody here, but these are some of the comments that are rolling in. Thank you to Donna and Judith and Susan and Beryl rooting you on. Vicky sends you a couple of hearts. Pam, talk about the caregiver isolation. I'm going to let you do that, but just in general, folks, one thing, and there's from our mutual friend, Barbara Clitheroe. One thing that will happen with the program too, is that we'll get into some of these issues and talk about some of these things specifically. And so Beryl's question about caregiver isolation, I mean, there are hundreds of tiny, if we had an outline, it would just go on and on and on because of all the little things that we're going to want to talk about. I'll tell you what, rather than talking about caregiver isolation right now, Pam, let's talk about our next show, which comes up on the 18th of February. And I know you're very excited because we have a very special person that's going to be on the program.
Yeah, it's Teepa Snow is going to be our guest in 2 weeks. And she is just, I owe my life and I owe the life Rich had with me to her. If it hadn't been for her, I don't know what would have happened. She's just the most amazing, dedicated woman I ever met in my life. And for you to be able to ask questions from her is really pretty good. Really pretty good because she's hard to get a hold of. So Teepa Snow will be our guest next week.
That's going to be
2 weeks. Yeah.
Really exciting indeed. So people can send questions to Pam or join and float some questions to the Streamcast directly to Teepa Snow. That's going to be pretty great. And, that's one of the really amazing elements of COVID. COVID has forced all of us into this sort of Zoom world. But the benefit of that is now people are more comfortable hopping on something like this from wherever they are. So we're benefiting from a little bit. It's a little bit of the silver lining, I guess.
Oh, for sure. For sure. She would never be able to make it here with her schedule the way it is. But she has promised to be here for the grand opening. So that's going to be awesome.
Terrific. Pam, let's close out with just a little update kind of on a couple of the things that you have in your near future. What's on your radar, say, in the next couple of weeks or month? Or let me, before I ask you that, backtrack just a couple of weeks. Where did you just go and why? And then what's ahead of you? What's your schedule like?
Well, I just came back from Arizona where I did a presentation on building the village in the Phoenix area, which went really, really well. I was a speaker at not a speaker, but a sponsor of Teepa Snow's conference that she had in November. Next week, I will be a speaker for Coping with Dementia, their international conference. And then I'll be teaching for the senior, I think it's called the Senior Advisory Group down in San Diego. I'll be doing that next week. And then I'm going to be talking with Amsterdam about building the village over there. That's coming up, actually. That has just been set at March the 2nd. So yeah, there's just lots and lots of stuff that's going on, just keeps me busy.
Keeps you completely out of trouble, I think, too, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back again in a couple of weeks for another edition of the Forget Me Not Streamcast. In the meantime, please feel free to share this with everybody out there that you can think of who potentially could learn or benefit from today's program, or just knowing the schedule for the program so that we can build a bigger audience, mostly so that we can reach more people, because we know more people will be facing dementia and memory care issues going forward. It's just inevitable. But we have incredible resources, including Pam and Teepa Snow, who will be with us in 2 weeks. And any final thoughts there, Pam?
No, I think this is awesome. Just got to get the word out. People have to be educated. They have to understand what's going on because they need the help. We really need the help. So yeah, it's going to be fun. The more the merrier.
All right. Well, we thank you once again for watching the Forget Me Not Streamcast. My name is Brian Prowitz. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks here with Forget Me Not Village.